Welcome to Ngosti Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Find your own voice. Lead from within. Over to you, Carol Ann. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello and good afternoon from London, UK. And my name is Carol Ann. And as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, what they experience is free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within. So over to you, Amanda.
My name's Amanda Cottrell. I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It's not afternoon here, it's 6 a.m. So I'm up bright and early before work to be with you all. I am an artist, an illustrator, and an author, and I also am an elementary school teacher. And my focus is always helping people find their own unique creative capacities within themselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. So our topic today is how to deal with midlife eating disorder. And Carol Ann, you actually chose this topic. So I love to hear, before I make any comment, I love to hear why you chose the topic. It's kind of like, it's a very deep topic. So over to you.
It is. And I sort of looked at it a few times and thought, oh, can we sort of dive into this? But I hadn't really thought about there being eating disorders around sort of midlife. And it was just something, again, that I heard on a TV program. They were talking about it, and I thought, oh, it's interesting, because you always assume or sort of associate eating disorders with younger children, younger people. But actually, looking into it, it has become more so people with, in midlife are now showing up with eating disorders. And it can be because of either they had eating disorder when they were younger and it's re-emerged, or it's just emerging now because of what's going on for them. There was another one, but I've forgotten what it was, the reason. But the fact that it is here, and of course this particular time as well that we've been going through has just exacerbated the whole situation as well. So I think it's something worth looking at, and it made me start thinking about my eating that I went through last year. Keep eating the cakes and the icing, and so now just looking at what I'm eating and what exactly is an eating disorder and how can we deal with it and move from there. So Amanda, what are your thoughts on hearing this topic?
Well, I actually have a really close friend who is in midlife and has an eating disorder, and so it's really an interesting topic for me because she goes from not eating at all to then binge eating, and then not eating at all, and then binge eating and not healthy food. And so for me, for like looking at it as her friend, like I'll invite her over for dinner to have and make something healthy, or when we are out, I'll make sure that like we can go stop and get a shake or something that so that she is getting some food at some point in the time. But hers is because she's quite overweight, and then she has this like binge purge cycle as well, and she's had it since she was a teenager, and so it really affects when her mental health is not doing well, then her eating disorder flares up as well. So I think that um, and I'm not an expert on this, but I definitely think that there's probably a correlation between mental health and eating disorders, because I know when she's struggling with her mental health, then the eating disorder becomes that much more obvious and that much more of a stress as well. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it. What about you, Nomza?
I actually didn't know that there were older people can have eating disorder. I thought it was the youngsters until Carol Ann put the topic, and that's when I actually realized, yeah, it's and unfortunately, I had a friend who had the eating disorder, and she took her own life as well. That was a few months ago. Because basically, if you have eating disorder, is more like mental health problems, and if it's not dealt with properly, that person, because she had kids as well, that person can feel pressured to actually do the things that, for me, basically, I believe that eating disorder is something that might be something underlying problems that person is going through, and instead of maybe for them to the professionals dealing with that eating disorder, they need to deal with the actual problem with the person, what they are going through, and try to understand exactly what they are going through, because there must be something that has caused an attachment that has caused them to behave the way they are behaving. And after that, once they understand what is going on and try to actually uh, get that person to get help. But unfortunately, when I was reading about it, they were saying sometimes the people can be forced to be section, and sometimes people can, there's so many things. But what I realized with the doctors and the whole team, they sometimes they don't know how to approach the situation. Basically, they don't know how to approach. They make things worse where there is no where it's not necessary. Because I saw with my problems when I actually made a comment with somebody, we're talking about the Bible and we're talking about Jesus and talking about this, and that person, because they thought I was crazy that Jesus exists, so they called the social services to think that I was going crazy. But I looked at the approach, how they approached the situation, towards the situation when this girl, when whoever reported the situation, how they approached me. If I wasn't bonkers, basically I would have ended up being the crazy one. But then I looked at the situation, every department, even the doctors. I remember, because the social services, they need the doctors to go to basically on their side. I remember when they said to go to your GP. So I went to the GP, and the GP said, there's nothing wrong with you. Go home. And then they sent me back because they were looking for the evidence that wasn't exist. And the other GP said, if you don't do what the social services want, you will lose your children. So I wrote that down. For me, basically, when somebody says something that I don't understand it, I take my phone and I record the conversation without them knowing. So I asked her to repeat that. And basically, I ended up sucking her as my GP, basically. And But then when I look at that whole situation, when I was reading, sometimes the professionals can make things worse. So you need, if someone has eating disorder, they will need to find somebody that is caring, somebody that is ready to listen, not judgmental. Not everyone that has a degree. So you have to understand that not everyone that has a degree in a certain job, they know what they're doing. They don't. Because with my situation, I actually ended up sucking the social services. I ended up ringing the solicitor and asking her in section which part where they are actually bullying and invading my privacy. When I actually read that through for them, that's how I got rid of them. But actually, they would have made me crazy where there was no crazy. I'm allowed to talk about God. And at the same time, they didn't know that it was a discrimination. So basically, what I'm saying is if you have an eating disorder, it's just gonna have to be tough. You're gonna have to have family members who are caring, who are not going to force you to get help. We're just gonna try to understand what is going on and let you go in your own pace, or you're gonna have to find a professional that is really, really good. So that is where the problem is. Amanda, right now, you know what I'm talking about because you are actually fighting your battle with the coronavirus. And it only takes one person to enter your life and read what is written and agree with you because they know the rules. But if the professional can take a chance as well and just basically try to actually manipulate you. So for me, basically, it was like, listen, I don't want anyone wasting my time. So if I didn't have that character, I would have lost my children. I would have been judged where it wasn't necessary. So that over to you, Carol Ann.
I don't know. Did you want to jump in here, Amanda?
I really like how Numza was saying that she learned the laws because I think that's something that's so important. That once you know the laws and you know when things are being violated and what discrimination actually is, then you pull back your power. When it comes to eating disorders, I also agree with you that getting the right doctor and the right doctor who understands is something that is super, super important because that's what my friend has. She has a specialist who specializes in eating disorders and has like a special program for her to use, and she gets on it and she's doing really good, and then she falls off, and then she gets back on it and does really good, and then falls off again, and so that's that mental health piece too, right? Where like even with the supports, you still need other supports too. And I wish that psychologists and other professionals were covered under our healthcare. I wish that all of that was covered for people because I believe that if we focused on mental health, we would have so many less problems in our society because even like people who have alcoholism or something like that, there's an underlying mental health issue there that's being covered up by the alcohol. And the same with the eating disorder. There's an underlying mental health disorder that is being manifested as an eating disorder, but there's really something deeper. And I think anything that is showing up is something deeper that's not healed within ourselves. And so if we can learn what that is to heal within ourselves, it's not just about making sure you eat properly. It's about you healing that part of you that is struggling with the food, that is making you feel like you're overweight or underweight or whatever it is. And so I really think there's something that's much deeper within ourselves that needs to be healed from our childhood or from our past, or even possibly from past lives if you believe in that. where that piece needs to be healed before you can truly move on from that. And it may pop back up again. You may think that you've overcome your eating disorder, just like people overcome alcoholism, and then 5-10 years later something happens in your life and you go right back down. and you need to be gentle with yourself and find the tools to get you back up. So if it's professionals or friends or a special program that can help you, I think that reaching out for supports is so important, because just hiding in that sadness and sorrow isn't going to help. It's just going to make things continue down that darker path. Whereas if you can pick yourself up and even reach out for a tiny bit of help, then that's tiny crack in the door starts to open, and will open a little bit further and open a little bit further the more that you heal within yourself.
I totally agree. It is something at a deeper level. And it concerns me when you're saying, Nomsa, that, there's a professional who's trying to manipulate you. To me, that's not a professional. It's not about trying to manipulate somebody. What they need to be doing is, as you were saying, Amanda, is actually listen to the person. It's getting into their world and really understanding how they see the world, how they're experiencing the world, that has them do what they're doing to their body, has them eating in the way that they're eating, which is having the impact on the body that it is. And, how, you can look at yourself in the mirror, but you see what you see, and it's not always the truth of what's there, and it's what's in your head. It's how you're seeing it. And if you're seeing yourself as this big person, when actually what the mirror is showing is you're very thin, then there's no amount of telling somebody that you're actually thin. It won't go in, because to them, that's not what they're seeing. And so you really need to address their vision of themselves, what has them see themselves that way or think of themselves in that way. And it isn't just about one specialist, because it's multifaceted. We're multifaceted beings. So there's many angles on which to look at this. And just by coming at it at one angle all the time, you're only shifting one perspective when there are other things going on. So again, yes, it can come up again because you haven't dealt with that other perspective. And I know from going back to healing past traumas, I've gone back to them many times. And then there's been a period of time where I haven't gone back at all. And then all of a sudden, I'm back at that memory, at that trauma. And it's like, wow, you have a certain, I thought I've dealt with this, but it's another angle on it, another perspective. And I'm always amazed how there's another perspective and a deeper level of healing that can go on. So you really need to have an open mind. And yes, it's a shame that we don't have these complementary fields and therapists or practitioners available on the NHS. But then I wonder whether you would get the same, I don't know, something doesn't feel right in that. But I think that is the thing that actually stops people from going, is the cost. And if you can't get it for free, then, they don't go there. And it does cost money. And I've spent lots of money over the years in all sorts of different complementary fields. Trained in a lot myself, but I've experienced a lot. And I've realized how they do complement and they support each other, and it's really important for that. But getting to what is it that is causing the eating disorder to be there. First thing is actually recognizing you've got an eating disorder. You know? Until you recognize that, until you recognize that maybe there's something that wants to be said that hasn't yet been said, that's stuck inside you, and therefore you're really struggling with finding your voice and speaking your truth. If that's the case, then you will continue to find other ways of, it's almost like there's a cry for help, but the cry can't be heard, can't be understood. And you haven't recognized that actually that eating disorder is that cry for help. And so maybe it's sitting down and looking at, well, am I binge eating? And is it maybe every now and again I'm binging? Because maybe you're not fully in the binge eating, eating disorder, but you could be binging every now and again. And therefore there is a disorder with your eating. Have a think about that, because that got me thinking that, yeah, every now and again I have a binge. Just, oh God, I can't, I'm eat. Well, what's causing me to do that? And I hadn't really thought about, there's a disorder there. So in midlife, things change. There's other stresses can happen. But what they've also realized is there's the premenopause. Your hormones are changing. And in puberty, your hormones are changing. And you tend to, that's why we've associated eating disorders with the younger ones. And because it can be hormonal changes that trigger eating disorders. And so therefore now they're thinking, well, premenopausal, there's hormonal changes going on there. Lots to think about. It is, like you were saying, Namsa, in the beginning, it's quite a minefield. And it is something that's not researched a great deal at the moment around the, midlife sort of age and eating disorders. So what are you hearing now, Namsa?
I hear you, Carol Anna, when you're saying sometimes you need to, if you have an eating disorder, it will keep showing up, and you will need healing. I agree with you. Basically, you need deeper healing with whatever is going on. I remember with myself, when I lived in Africa with my family, my behavior was like very simple. I was a very simple person, and just going with the flow in life and never complain. I'm always happy. But when I moved to United Kingdom, I started seeing, basically I started getting depressed, like a little bit of not unhappy, like following people, like their characters and following people. And basically my character was changing a little bit. So it kind of raised a concern for me, because I was like, this is not my character. Why am I behaving like this? So when I actually started confronting the problems in my life, I knew that actually I took Paul McKenna's programs. When I took Paul McKenna's programs, that's when I actually started realizing actually everything is to do with the mindset, is to do with a childhood attachment. So I started looking at when I was growing up, what might have caused this, what might have caused this. The sadness for me, basically, I was very, very close to my family. And being here, no matter how happy I was with my friends or anyone, my mom and my dad, they always played, and my grandparents, they always played an important part in my life. So there was something in my heart that wasn't, there was a hole in my heart that I needed to accept that my family were not here. And that by doing that, I started following other people's characters and neglecting my character. And basically, I became a follower. But when I took Paul McKenna's programs, it was then when I started doing self-healing, going deep with my problems. Sometimes I will just go like specific focus on the specific problems. Like to do the healing, I would focus on the specific issue. And I remember the day when I actually focused on the specific issue, focusing on that and going deep. That's when I think I must have opened the door that I shouldn't have opened, because I was moving away from whatever was holding me back, and going into something. Basically, it was very, very dangerous what I was doing. I think I should have had somebody professional, but we were just being given the work just to do it on your own. So I did it on my own. And I opened the door basically by being that I shouldn't have opened it. That made me like hear the voice like, who do you think you are? It's like I was being held somewhere because of my past. And that past would have caused me to start having these disorders. But I healed myself. I find myself and I healed myself. And when you say it comes back, it will keep showing up. But you have to be aware of when it's showing up, you have to be aware of how to deal. For me, basically, I had to do deliverance for every uh, thing in my mind that I wasn't happy with. I had to do deliverance step by step, step by step. But now it cannot show up because I've already broken that cord, that chain, whatever it was blocking me. I've already broken it, so it cannot show up again. But that means it goes deep. You have to find somebody that knows how to do healing properly, because sometimes you can actually physically get sick, and sometimes get really, really sick when you are being actually getting away from that. And it is also a subject that I agree with you, Carol Ann, that it's not really being talked about, because I have never really, apart from hearing people gossip saying this one has eating disorder, I've never really come across with anyone or a coach that says I'm an eating disorder coach, or I do this. So I think it's something that we need, people need to raise awareness. I know that I'm in a matchmaking group, and one of the matchmakers, she put a message. Basically, I think her daughter has the same problem, eating disorder, and she tried to take her own life a few times. Like my friend succeeded, but her daughter unfortunately did not succeed. So I think it's a subject, something that the government will need to basically put more funding on that, because it does affect people without the society knowing. It does affect people, and people in midlife, they are being affected like myself. It's not a subject that I was actually thinking about it, that it would happen, but when Carol Anna actually put the topic, I looked into it deep. That's when I realized actually we don't talk about this in the society. Over to you, Carol Anna or Amanda.
I mean, eating disorders they often function as ways of dealing with stress. And it is about being able to deal with that stress. And I think, I don't know about it being about pouring more money into it, but or getting the government to do something about it. It's about us being educated in being able to take responsibility for ourselves, to understand ourselves and understand how to deal with stress, and realize that stress impacts us in ways that we really don't realize. You know, people say, oh, I'm stressed. And it just seems to be an acceptance. I'm stressed. Well, you can be stressed for so long and you can increase that stress. But there will come a point where your body goes, enough. And then it shows up in other ways. And we need to deal with that stress. And sometimes it can show up as you're being really irritable. The other way is the eating disorder. So you're punishing yourself. You're doing something to your body. But if we knew how to deal with stress, recognize stress and how it is not healthy for us, and to recognize how we can, or understand how we can actually dissipate that stress. There are many ways of dealing with it. As we said before, there's things like meditation. There's actually write out, what is it that's on your mind? What is it that's causing you to be anxious and stressed? Write about it, describe it, and then maybe do something like tapping or do some meditation or any other sort of complementary field that you know of. And then go back and write about it again and notice what's changed. And, write your story and then rewrite it, bringing in some, say to yourself, well, look at the words that you're using and go, well, okay, so how can I reframe this? How can I refocus this? Transform. And just a very simple prayer that you can put up or phrase that you can say is transform across all dimension, time, space, and reality. Transform across all time, dimension, space, and reality. Transform across all time, dimension, space, and reality. And then write out again. Notice what shifted. There's also the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is very simple, just 4 lines. Write it all out, what's going on for you, and then just do the prayer. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And just keep repeating that. And then write out again what's there for you and notice what shifts. Those are some very simple, powerful techniques that are available just so that you can start helping yourself and get into a frame of mind where you can then say, okay, so who could I now see that could help maybe take me deeper into this? Because having somebody listen to you and listen to your language of what you're saying, because very often you don't hear your own language. That's why writing it down is very helpful, because you can see what you're saying. But actually speaking it to somebody else, they'll be able to hear your language and pick you up on it. So it is somebody that listens and not somebody that's trying to force you, ideas onto you and say, well, you're saying this, when actually it's not your words. They need to be using your words, not their words or their interpretation of what you said. Somebody who says, well, this is what I heard you to say. So it's taking on that sense of what this is how it was heard over here. Is that what you said? These are the words I heard you to say. And you know, it's really helping. It's somebody that will get into your life, into your world, and then support you, help you go deeper. And there are many, many. Oh, I'm surprised. I'm always amazed, and I'm always hearing about new fields and new therapists that are coming. You know, that are there that I've never heard of. New ones that are coming out. Music. Now, I've been listening to something called Music Alchemy by somebody called Gary Albert, and that is profound because it just helps. It seems like vibrationally sound is healing. And this music just seems to vibrate and nudge apart all the dark, dense energies and shifts your thinking. So there's another one, which is Art Alchemy, that I've been looking at recently. And he does sessions. These two do sessions once a month. And they complement each other. The Art Alchemy is on the new moon. The Music Alchemy is on the full moon. So they're working again with the lunar cycle. So there's energies there. It's opening your mind to something else other than the fact that there's this eating disorder. That is just a symptom, as both Amanda and Noms have said, of something deeper. So open up your mind to something else that it may sound crazy. Nomsa, you found your way. And a lot of people find prayer very helpful. And I find prayer also. I do that as well. At times I will pray. It doesn't mean you're going crazy, but it might sound crazy to other people. But you do what you do to find yourself, to find you in amongst this whole craziness that's going on for you.
I think one of the things that I'm going to piggyback on with what you said is listen to your story. So one time when I was taking a yoga teacher training for kids, one of the tasks that we had to do was to tell another person our life story. And then after we told our life story, we had to reflect back on how much of it was positive and how much of it was the trauma that you told. And could you retell your story with a more positive, loving like theme behind it? Because you can tell the same story, and one can be very, very negative, and one can be very, very positive. And so the example they gave was of this person who grew up in a military family who moved a lot and never had a lot of friends, and she hated moving all the time, and so she moved away from home really young, and it was like you like felt so bad for her. And then you read the second story that was, yeah, I was from a military family. I had the opportunity to see the world. I got to travel all the time. It also gave me independence. I moved out young and I traveled on my own, and and it's the same person but telling the story from two different perspectives, and just how you feel even as the listener about the person or for the person when they tell the story the one way versus the other way. And so I think that's something that we should be really conscious of, especially if we're struggling with something, is what story are you telling? And how can you tell the same story, but more uplifting, so that you can see and feel that you've actually learned something, you actually gained power through the struggles in your life. And that's how I view the struggles in my life. I have gained power through the struggles in my life. They have made me stronger. They've made me more resilient. They have made me able to help other people, because I understand that sorrow, that despair, that struggle that people are going through, especially when they're going through a toxic divorce. I understand how you feel like you're locked in purgatory. if you're stuck in that space where somebody won't sign the divorce agreement, or it's just like the same argument back and forth for like months or years, and I understand that need. But and at the same time, when I look at my personal divorce, I am so grateful for it every single day, because I've become such a stronger person. I've become a more independent person. I have learned about my codependency traits and have been able to be conscious of them and to overcome some of them. And I think every single day that I'm so grateful for the life that I've been able to provide for me and my daughter in the last 8 years, um, since I got moved out and separated, and I just am amazed at how far I've come in 8 years of being like a codependent mess to an independent success, I think, in so many ways. And I think that if you are codependent on food, there could be something that or even not eating because of body image issues, that you can overcome it, and once you do, then you'll be able to empower and help other people, because they will be able to see how strong you were and how you were able to overcome it. And I think that's the same with alcoholism too, that people who have been able to, who were alcoholics and have overcome their alcoholism, they are some of the strongest people in the entire world.
Yeah, it is. If you can overcome them, it is. It does. It's something that Theodore Roosevelt said, actually. Each time we face our fear, we gain strength, courage, and confidence in the doing. And that's exactly what you were saying there, Amanda. The more you face it, the more you work with it and break free from it, you find that courage and strength. And it does give you that strength to continue and to keep picking yourself up, because life does throw curveballs at you, you know, all the time. And some of them you think, oh my God, am I ever going to get out of this curveball? And I know, like, the curveball you're dealing with at the moment, Amanda, is like, wow. But you've got the strength, and I hear the strength that you've got to say no, to stand up for your rights and actually explain and research and find the truth, because it's actually the truth that sets you free. You know, go through all the minefield of all the lies and the deceit and the cover-ups, and what actually is the truth here. Well, actually, we're very strong, we're very capable, and if you're just diligent in that, it's amazing what you can achieve. And but in sort of midlife, there are some curveballs that come your way. There's some stresses that are actually unique to midlife, and some of them are like relationship problems. You've perhaps been with somebody for a long time, and then you get to that midlife stage, and it's like all of a sudden it falls apart, and it's like, okay, what now? How do I pick myself up and keep going? You've got, maybe there's a death of a partner or a spouse, but there's death starts to happen. You've also got death of parents, probably more at that age as well. So there are things that happen at midlife that are not so prevalent when you're younger. And so you start getting exposed to these stressors, these curveballs that send you out of your comfort zone, things that you think, oh God, that I never thought that was gonna happen to me. You've never foreseen it. And then there's also the empty nest syndrome. If you've been a parent and your children then start leaving home, or they've left home, that's another thing altogether. I mean, in some ways it's like, wow, yes, I've got some time to myself, I can do this. But there's also, you spent your life with them, you've had their company, and now they've gone. They're not, you don't have to think about them. You then start having to, you can start thinking about you, which is like, wow, that's a bit different. So there's these aspects, retirement or even loss of a job, because you get into that midlife and maybe you're more likely to lose that job. But you've also got the problem of, well, am I, able to get another job because of my age? Or maybe you've retired, and what then? Well, if you haven't prepared for it, or you haven't got that mindset of resilience and bounce back ability, and go, okay, this is where I'm at. And like you were saying, Amanda, you could write the story, you could tell the story of how you are, but then yes, you could retell it in a more positive light. What could you get from that? And how could it actually be looked at? And I think this is where there's a case for us to expand our vocabulary. I think we're a little bit short on positive words, on words that actually help us to grow and to look at things in a positive way. We seem to have a huge vocabulary for negativeness, put down words or negative words or words that destroy people rather than uplifting or how you're feeling. How about expanding your vocabulary? Look at, make that something you could do. What are more words that you can find that can describe something in a really positive, glowing way, in a growthful way, in a different perspective? And expand your vocabulary. Because the more words you can find that are more positive, they outweigh the negative ones. Whereas I think there's an imbalance at the moment. That's what I get a sense of. And because I do know when I work with people with in some of work that I do, and they get to a place where they're going, there's a peace, there's a calm, there's a feeling that they've never experienced before, and they can't find any words for it. Words eventually come over time, but if we could expand our vocabulary, maybe there's a word that would pop up. But yeah, and that's something I think I'd like to do myself, is expand my vocabulary a lot more with positive words. Sometimes there's you're maybe lacking adequate savings for retirement. So there's money concerns, because when you get to retirement, it's like, wow, well, have you got enough savings? What's your pension like? What are you going to live on? There's another curveball. It's like, well, did I think enough when I was younger? No, because you never think about retirement and about the fact that you will retire one day, and that you need something to live on. But there are other options. I mean, I'm now in a position where, yes, I do have a pension. I've got my teaching pension. I've got my state pension. But I've got my own business. So I'm generating funds for myself. So, there's other ways of bringing in an income. And it's having that multiple streams of income mindset. And so you can get over that. Instead of focusing on lack, you focus on plenty and abundance and gratitude, and see what happens. So what are you thinking, Omsa?
I agree with you. Gratitude. Gratitude is a big word. It's a really, really big word. That is very, very important in our lives, but we don't use it very often. Being grateful for what we have. We tend to look at what's bad, what has not worked out. But if we look at gratitude, I think we will rewrite our story, like Amanda was saying. We'll rewrite the story like our language, the way we understand it, and then retell it in a positive way. Because when you write your story, you can write it and then focus on and question yourself, has my story really been the way I see it? And that's what really, really helped me. Actually, when I actually looked back at my life, and I was like, the way I've been telling my story, that's not true. It's a lie. I've been lying. So, and then I had to retell my story, not changing it, but I had to be truthful. And there's a part on Paul McKenna's programs that it says, if you really, really want to be truthful, if you really, really want to move on and live a happy life, you're going to have to look at your life and be truthful and stop telling lies about yourself. And I had to look at it. Basically, I had to call myself a liar, basically, out loud. That because honestly, I had to tell myself, Nomsa, you are a liar. Because there were things that I was blaming myself, things that I was blaming, like my parents. I don't know. I'm not a negative person, but I started looking at things in a different way. But when I started retelling like what Amanda was saying, you see the beauty about the life. I saw the beauty about the life that I had, and I started being grateful. That helped me to actually break away from every chain that was holding me, because there were lies I was telling myself. And you talk about listening to your story, and it's very, very important to carry on. Like when you say listen to your story, and Amanda mentioned that whatever you do, listen to it very, very carefully. And emptiness syndrome. I remember, when my basically father-in-law, he was like, every single day he will call me and tell me what has gone wrong in the day and stuff. But since we moved in with him for a few days, it's been 1 week now. I have never seen a man happy as he is. So I'm like, what is going on? And even himself, he keeps questioning himself. He's like, I'm sleeping very well. I'm sleeping all night, getting up at 9. And before he would just wake up at 2 a.m. So I'm like, maybe he's lonely, but he couldn't say it. There's something like he's empty. He was feeling empty, like he was saying emptiness syndrome. So it was like when I was talking to my friends, I was like, somebody seems to be happy with having us that he's in his house, but we're not happy. But he seems so happy. Honestly, he's always smiling. He sleeps like sometimes when I leave, taking my daughter to school, quarter to 20 to 9, he's still asleep. But before he would be at work, maybe sometimes I would have had a phone call telling me how much he didn't get to sleep and stuff. So it's very, very important to actually look at the underlying problems of the situation and retell your story, because sometimes our behavior can be triggered by the lies that we tell ourselves. So it's very, very, very important to actually look at the story and be grateful. Like right now, I'm grateful that we are here at Ngozi Talk Shows, and I wouldn't have had a chance to learn about this topic if I wasn't here. So I have to look at life differently now. And I have to be grateful, basically, that I'm learning. Sometimes people might say, oh, we are coaches, but when you have more than like 12 coaches, you learn from those coaches. You learn different things every single day. And you look at life, you're like, I've never thought of life in that way. So we are learning. Yeah.
And that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Be open to constantly learning.
Yeah.
Rather than having a closed mindset. Think, oh, I know everything, I know it. You don't. There is so much more to learn. And there's always something new showing up. So it's having that open mindset of learning and constantly learning. And I love what you're saying that, is it your father-in-law?
Yes.
With, yes. It sounds like there's a contentness there that wasn't there before. Before there was like that, and you don't realize there's a discontent, there's a fidgetiness, there's something missing. But now there's a contentness, there's company. And I think it is having company is a key factor with a lot of things, but it is it's company that cheers you up, that also is aware of you rather than, because you can be with a lot of people in company and still feel lonely. But if you've got that company that just cheers you up, that listens to you, that is there, it is different. It is different. But that's what I'm hearing. There's a contentedness there now. Bless him. Yeah.
He is so happy. I've never seen him so happy. I was like, oh my goodness. And it's making me question whether we should find a house where he can have a house outside, part of the house outside, where he can come and it's making me question everything, basically, that maybe we should have, I know he loves his privacy, whether we should get a house where he can have his own privacy, but he's still with us. I don't know, because he is so happy. And I was like, he is so different. He is basically, I don't know how to explain it. When you hear someone always complaining, and now you are like, oh, okay, he is so happy.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe that's why you hadn't found somewhere yet, because there's something to rethink here.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
It made me question, why are we here? Basically, I was questioning myself, why are we here? It's like we were here to learn something about his situation. Honestly, I was like, I was questioning myself yesterday and today, why are we here? Are we actually here because we've not found a house, or God has just made it very basically tough for us to find a house so we can see what kind of a life, what he's actually going through? So I don't know.
So yeah,
I
it's
think
just
that
staying
we're here
open.
to grow and learn.
Yeah.
Through any of our struggles, whatever your struggle is, I think we're here to grow and learn. And
Yeah.
however long it takes you to learn that lesson, that's okay. We're all on our own individual paths, and sometimes something that we are struggling with so right now in this moment will actually be a blessing later on.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's beautiful. Any words of encouragement, Carol Ann, before we leave? I know Amanda has to go to work.
I think there's something I heard yesterday. People will never rise above the opinion of themselves. I thought that was I was like, it made me stop and think. So it is recognizing what is the opinion that you have about yourself, because you can't rise above that until you change that. So, and that can be changed, but you have to recognize it first. So what is the opinion you have about yourself? And then go, okay, how can I change this? In what way can I change this so that I can rise above that? And an affirmation that you can say, which I love, is, I intend to accept my body today, love my body tomorrow, and appreciate my body always. Because whatever changes you're going through with your body, with your life, you could even say that about your life. Instead of my body, you could say my life. Substitute that in there. So it is about accepting it, loving it, and appreciating it all the time. So, yeah. Amanda, you got anything?
Oh, I kind of already summed mine up, but I love how you said it's about appreciation. I think that when we can appreciate our bodies, when we can appreciate our homes, when we can appreciate our vehicles and our friends, that life just becomes so much better.
I have nothing to say after what you two have both said. Honestly, I have nothing to add, because I think appreciation about the life that you have is very, very important. And I don't think I have anything to say. All I'm going to say is please listen to Carol Ann and Amanda's words. They are very, very powerful. They sound very easy and very simple, but it's actually not easy for us to use them. So please use them, listen and use them. And we are here at, of course, the talk shows Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. Please join us or get in touch with us and live with grace, everyone, and God bless you.